Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? And how's things where you are? Hope it's fantastic. Everything here is good. And so yesterday we talked about my kid's graduation. That was Saturday. Sunday, I got to spend some more time with my dad and talk to him a little bit more about the area here. And I learned a few things I didn't know about my local area. And then that made me think about something that I think might sound crazy to a lot of people. And I'm curious if this sounds crazy to you. Here in West Virginia, in the middle schools, I don't think this continues into high school. At least it didn't when I was a kid. But we have a required class here. It might be called civics, but it's usually called West Virginia history. And we have a test every year called the Golden Horseshoe Test, which is, just West Virginia history type stuff. And kids memorize the 55 counties in West Virginia, and you memorize all the county seats, the cities, and you just learn all of this stuff: state, animal, bear, whatever, bird. I meant to say flower. You learn all of that normal stuff. You learn about the Civil War and our whatever that was called when we split from Virginia. And I'm curious to know, so I definitely know that I've told this to people before, and they've been like, that's weird. We don't have anything like that. Does your state have anything like that? Do you have any sort of in your public education system, did you learn about your local state history? Did you learn about your local government or like any of that sort of stuff? Because it might be something that's fairly unique to West Virginia. I'm not sure. It's a weird thing because, as we've talked about, my state is gigantic in landmass. We're a very large state with very few people. Our biggest city is like 40,000 people, right? That's our largest city in the state. So I'm just curious to know, where we fall on that spectrum, because I don't feel like here there's a whole lot of things to be super proud of because we are such and we're constantly losing population. Our population has been in decline since like the 70s, maybe even the 60s. It's a weird place to have a lot of pride about. I have a lot of fondness for my state. But it's more about fondness for the region, not necessarily fondness for state government or any of that sort of stuff. So I'm really curious to hear. But anyway, so talking to my dad, growing up, we talked about the trains last week or whatever. I wasn't really aware that we had this interurban electric train system that ran between multiple cities here and ferried people. It was a trolley system. That's really, really cool to me. And I guess I was under the impression, my dad's talked about it many times. Like, he's talked about it in the past as if it was a thing that he experienced a lot. But I didn't realize it was gone in the 40s. And my dad was born in 45. So he never rode on it. He never saw it that he can remember. It might have still been around until he was 2 or 3, but I'm pretty sure it was all gone in the mid 40s. So he never really got to experience it. He definitely saw the streetcar lines and all that sort of stuff. And so he's told me about that many times. He's also told me about the factory that he worked in after high school. He graduated high school. He went to work for a construction company in the summers. But before he went to college, he worked at a factory. It was the Owens, Illinois. And I'm not positive I know what they did. I've never really asked him a whole lot. I believe it's Owens Corning now. I think that's all the same company. But it was Owens, Illinois, and they were a manufacturing plant of some kind. He's told me that they made boxes. They made a lot of boxes. That was one of his main things, was running the box lines or whatever. But it was it was the place you went to go after school when you didn't have a plan. Like, you went and worked in the factory. And we had a few others. Westinghouse used to have a factory here. I think they made I don't know that they made light bulbs here. They might have, but they definitely made some sort of electronic components. I had a friend whose dad was an engineer at Westinghouse, and he used to bring work home with him. I remember him having these apparatuses in his garage. I don't know exactly what they were, but they had hundreds of wires coming out that he had labeled each one so that he could put it into place. And I don't remember what that was about, but I know he was definitely like an electrical engineer there and did something cool. But I also discovered, I feel really ashamed that I don't have something to show you here, because it's something that I've been saying for the last, I don't know, very long time, that there's a place here in town that I want to photograph, and it looks like some abandoned warehouses or abandoned factories. And so I asked my dad about them, and he said, yeah, like the one that I specifically see a lot when I pick my kid up from school was a box company. It was called FAIRMONT Box Company, and they made boxes. He said, it was a 24/7 operation. They made boxes nonstop, and just corrugation machines and glue and all that sort of stuff. And it was right on the river, and it really stopped and made me think, like, that whole little area, there's this what used to be an industrial park, I assume, that was right on the river, was a really big thing. And so I guess there was a heck of a lot more industry here than I was familiar with or that I knew of. There's the weird stretch where my dad worked was on the eastern side of town, and there's this big abandoned lot. I mean, that's what it is, right? And I can remember as a kid that abandoned lot, and when I say lot, we're talking like half mile of road, like quarter to a half mile of road. There's a long stretch where it's just this long empty area. And when I was a kid, that was all filled with abandoned buildings. And that was the factories. There was multiple factories there. It wasn't just the Owens, Illinois that my dad worked at. He's told me about the others, but I don't remember them. And the weird part about it is none of that was anywhere near any rivers. Like, the stuff that I'm thinking of over where I want to do some photography was right on the river, because that makes sense, because we could boat stuff to Pittsburgh from here, boat stuff to Morgantown. There was a whole lot of coal transport on the Mon River when I was a kid. You don't see that anymore at all. There was a lot of transport just in general. There was tons of that. So that river was really important for this area for a long time. And so were those trains. I guess that those passenger trains, those rail lines, were also used for business. They were used to transport stuff, and I didn't know that. But there's a whole lot of history here that I've never really bothered to look into. You know, I've done the park tours and stuff like that, but I know about the coal mines, and we've had lots of coal disasters and all that sort of stuff. But it's all tied together. You know, we're this humongous state in size, but we all share a common history. You know, this state existed because of coal, separated from Virginia because of coal, and when coal went away, the state stopped being anything, and it's been that way for a long time. I don't think they teach that so much in our West Virginia history class. So I'm curious about you. Did you get a state history class when you were a kid? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is recriminate. It is a verb meaning to bring up accusations against someone who has accused you. After Natasha was snubbed by us for blabbing to the gossip pages, she recriminated by pointing out that some of us had leaked gossip ourselves. Recriminate. R-E-C-R-I-M-I-N-A-T-E. That's interesting. So, blame the victim? Is that recriminate? Somebody's No, that's you're being the victim and yeah. Is that like a straw man defense? Something?